Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the monthly live mineral webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the Paris School of Mines, and Blue Cap Productions. Tune in on the first Wednesday of every month and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to all of you, and thank you for tuning in to Mineral Talks Live, the #1 mineral talk show on the internet. We want to welcome you to April, which is one of our favorite months of the year. Why is it one of our favorite months? Well, in less than 1 week from today, we're going to be celebrating the birthday of one of our founding members, Dr. Eloise Gaiu, the director of the Paris School of Mines. So for those of you who are watching live, go ahead and fire off an early happy birthday wish to Elo. And speaking of founding members, we also have Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez, the curatrix of the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and myself, Brian Sabota from Blue Cap Productions, rounding out what we like to call our Three Musketeers. If it isn't obvious by now, Mineral Talks Live is a majority female-owned endeavor, and we'd like to welcome all of you to our show. Today is April 2nd, 2025, and this is our 97th show of Mineral Talks Live. If you missed any of our past programs, you can catch the rebroadcast on our Mineral Talks Live YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@mineraltalkslive. And when you visit our YouTube page, remember to click the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever we post a new episode. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Mineral Talks Live is a monthly mineral talk show that airs live on the first Wednesday of every month. We started our show back in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, and our goal has always been to connect you with the other members of the mineral collecting community via our interviews, some of the best curatrix, curators, collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and media people in the mineral world. Today, I'm coming to you live from my studio here in Honolulu, Hawaii, while Raquel is on the other side of the U.S. in her office at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Eloise is out of her home in Paris, France. So with just the three of us, we're already an international show, but you, our faithful viewing audience, makes it even more so by tuning in from wherever you are. In fact, if you're watching this live, go ahead and use the chat feature at the bottom of the page to tell us where you're tuning in from right now. This chat feature will also allow you to instantly send messages to everyone watching the live show, so we encourage you to be as active as you'd like in the chat during the show. And while our guest and I generally don't see your messages during our conversation, throughout the show, both Raquel and Eloise will be monitoring the chat area and will be very active there. Occasionally, they may even interject a question or comment to us during the interview, so don't be shy if you want to ask something. If you happen to have a more in-depth question for our guest, go ahead and use the Q&A feature, which is located next to the chat icon, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the show. Finally, towards the end of the program, you'll see a window pop up on your screen. This is our quick-fire 5-question segment to see how well all of you know our guest. So test your knowledge, play along, and who knows, we may even have a good icebreaker for you next time you see our guest in person. And speaking of guests, today's guest is a gemologist, a gem cutter, and a wholesale gem dealer who is coming to you live from his home in New Hampshire. He has over 40 years of experience in the field and has traveled around the globe looking for gemstones. He's an international consultant, a world-renowned speaker, and an author of many articles on gemology and fascinating, even that too. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our show, Mr. John Bradshaw. John, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, not bad, Brian. Appreciate the intro, and it sounded so good, maybe I'll listen.
Hey, okay, I hope you tune in. And send us a chat message where you're tuning in from, won't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, so John, how's the weather out there in New Hampshire?
It's getting warmer day by day. We had kind of a cold and chilly winter, a little bit of snow late on, and spring is a long time coming, but the sun is shining today, so it's all good.
Fantastic. Now, John, you didn't grow up in New Hampshire. Tell us a little bit about where you were born.
Actually, just outside of Boston in Somerville. It's about a stone's throw from the TD Garden where the Bruins and the Celtics play.
Right on.
But yeah, pretty much stayed there until mid 1980s when I moved up to New Hampshire from there.
Right on. Tell us your earliest or your best memory of growing up in Boston when you were a little kid.
Growing up in Boston, so this it's changed a lot since that time. But I mean, from that time, there was no internet, there was no cell phone, so all the kids on the street would leave, and go out and play for the day, play hockey, play football, play something. Parents really didn't know where the hell we were until we came home for dinner, and there was never any issues. And I mean, that's certainly a memory that is very different today.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So now, as a young boy growing up in Boston, somehow you got introduced to kind of geology or gemology. What happened? Who did that?
So my parents used to have a lake house up in northern New Hampshire, and as far back as I can remember, I used to bring home rocks from the bottom of the lake, and my mother threw them out as fast as I brought them home. Um, but even more importantly, and fairly early on, my godmother, her best friend, was married to a geologist that traveled the world, and we used to go to Tony's house quite frequently. And Tony would always bring me a rock or a mineral from wherever he was traveling to, and that certainly kept my interest as a youngster. And couldn't wait to go to Tony's house again.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And going to Uncle Tony's house and hearing his latest stories of traveling around the world and bringing you a token of his travels. That's very much the way that I grew up because my father would travel around the world. And when he'd come home, we'd set up the slideshow and the slide projector, and we'd sit there and just let him talk story about his trip. And he always brought me something from his travels. And oh, I could totally imagine that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of come full circle. My first international trip with Tony was 1986 in Pakistan, and that was a great trip. It was something that was a long time coming. And today, I mean, from my cutting scraps, I often give the some of the bags of cutting scraps to Tony for his research that he's still doing, and he's in his mid 90s now.
Oh my God. Uncle Tony keeps going. So, how did you get involved in research chemistry?
Um, so I wanted to be a geologist from day one, and Tony actually used to work for Kennecott Copper, and at a young age, he left Kennecott Copper on his own to go out on his own. Um, and I, for whatever reason, thought that he was having trouble finding a job. That's why he was working for himself. And so I said, well, if Tony can't find a job, I definitely won't get a job in geology. So I went to chemistry, which was my next best option.
Okay, so then you are a research chemist,
Yeah.
and somehow the world of faceting enters your perspective, and you look at that and you say, I want to do that, and you turn your back on research chemistry to follow faceting. Tell us that story.
So when I was old enough to subscribe to a magazine, my first magazine that I subscribed to was Rock and Gem. Not so much for the gem part, for the rock part, because I was a mineral collector because of Tony, actually. And the more I got the magazine, the more I started reading about gems, the more interested I became in the gems, uh, still the rocks, but also the gems. And it kind of snowballed from there. My research chemistry days actually had a little bit to do with mining as well. We were developing roof bolt epoxy systems for use in particularly coal mines, but also the Billy mine out in Colorado. Also the Billy mine out in California, sorry, uh, uh, to basically hold the roofs together while the miners were mining.
Okay, and somewhere along that line, you decided to start your own company that was just like doing faceted stones. Is that kind of the right
Yeah,
progression and timeline?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, as a young cutter and having access to a few jewelry stores that were local, I would often stop by those stores and work with them a little bit in repairing a stone or supplying a stone or what have you. So the cutting kind of came on at a fairly early age. In 1979 was when I started cutting. And later that year, I went to the Rochester Mineral Symposium, and Carl Francis introduced me to Art Grant. And uh, Art had a display case that year at the symposium, and if I close my eyes, I can still see it. It was a tremendous case, full of not only the regular, quartzes and topazes and sapphires and what have you, but all kinds of rarities: fluorite, calcite, cerussite, all the ites basically, and it was tremendous. There's art there. So this is art back. This was 19. I think it was the mid '80s, late '80s maybe. Anyway, he's holding a fluorite octahedron. And this is in front of the Desert Inn, which is no longer there. But anyway, Art and I were in the Desert Inn, and a friend of Art's came in and he said, "Guys, you got to close the door and you got to come with us." He said, "Come on down at Boatner's service station." They had a kind of a gem show to speak of. You sold out of the trunk of your car or that what have you. Anyway, we went down to Boatner's, and there was a red pickup truck, and that fluorite octahedron was in the back. And two guys, when we got there, were trying to buy it. One guy wanted to buy it with a credit card. In the mid 1980s, you weren't going to buy it with a credit card in the middle of a parking lot. The other guy wanted to give him a check. He said, "Well, I don't know you. I'm not taking a check." So I said, "Well, how much do you want for that?" And he said, $400. So reached in, gave him $400, and off we went. So Art, known as Mr. Fluorite, cut the stone. And I think we have a picture of that as well coming up. Yes, there it is.
That
So
is fantastic.
3,965 carats. It's still the largest fluorite that has been cut. It now resides in the Smithsonian. We sold it to a collector in Western New York, and then he later in life donated it to the Smithsonian.
That is incredible. And you don't see a lot of cut fluorites because it's so soft. But I mean, one of that color with that beautiful cut and that size, that's exceptional.
It's a killer. It's a killer stone. It's a killer size. Fluorite certainly, with a hardness of 4, is really not used for jewelry, but for collector's purposes, display purposes, they're tremendous pieces.
And I love that. I love that. So now, excuse me, along the way, after you had started your faceting company, you started, as I said in the intro, coast to coast, and I believe Arthur was the two part of coast to coast. Tell us about the other coast part.
So, the year that I met Art in Rochester, he had convinced me to come to Tucson in February of 1980, and so I said sure, and he was going to take me around to show me to the various shows, introduce me to the various people. And at that time, there were only, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shows in town instead of the 40 or 50 that there are now.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that was my first experience with Tucson. I think I spent a grand total of $1,000, including travel expenses, and I was shaking in my boots. How am I going to make this back?
Impossible to even to do these days that to spend that little, but back
No
then that
kidding.
was big money.
Yeah, now it's just a couple nights at the hotel
Right.
and the bar.
My bar bill.
So anyway, shortly thereafter, might have been the year or two after that, I had met the McCrillises at Plumbago Mining, and they were also showing at the Desert Inn. So Art was showing with the Medicis, and I would show with the McCrillises, Plumbago Mining, across the aisle. And Mike Gray was upstairs in another room, and so we all kind of were doing similar things. And if a customer came in and they happened to be looking for something that I didn't have, I'd send them to Mike, I'd send them to Art, and they would do the same thing, respectively. And so we were out to dinner one night, and we said, why are we sending customers all over creation? Why don't we just form a company just for the rare stones? And I said, well, what will we call it? And I said, well, I'm on the East Coast and Mike's on the West Coast and Art's in the middle. So that's not Art in the middle. That's Brad Wilson, who is our now partner in Coast to Coast. Art had retired a number of years ago, and his daughter actually came in and worked with us for a few years, as well as Brad. Brad, I think, has been with Coast to Coast now since the mid '90s, '95, I believe. And every year we do the same thing in Tucson, and plus have the website up and running.
I love it. And Mike Gray, obviously the son of Buzz Gray, who
Correct.
was one of our guests last year. One of the few live shows that we actually did where I was sitting next to our guest at his
Oh,
home
nice.
in Missoula, Montana. So that was kind of cool. And I'm actually going to see Mike next week. So
Oh, sweet.
that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what Coast to Coast does and what your company really specializes in.
So I actually have two separate companies. Coast to Coast is the partnership with Mike and Brad, and we pretty much specialize in rare stones. And between the website and the booth in Tucson at GJX, we show exclusively rare stones for the most part. Bonitolite, rhodochrosite, cerussite. Brad has a lot of Canadian faceted gems as well. I think we had this year over 120 different species.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, there we go. There's a few of them there. I actually posted this on Facebook one time and said, if anybody can tell me what each one of these stones are, I'll buy them dinner anywhere they are.
Oh, come on.
You want to give it a shot, Brian?
Oh, God, not me. We're going to have Raquel do the best guess here, or Eloise, because they are both gemstone people. And they're a little bit shocked because they weren't expecting this.
I'll do it. I'll do it later.
Go ahead, Raquel, do it. Back row.
No, not later.
Yep.
Live, Raquel. You got to do it now.
Okay, starting from which one?
Starting
back
top
row,
row.
the yellowy brown.
The green titanite.
Where are you?
The green, right corner.
Oh,
No,
you went to the exact opposite. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine. That's par for course.
the green round is a sphalerite.
Yes, got it. The yellow one, let me go quickly just to say. Oh, I don't know. I pass on the yellow. The pink is gonna be rhodochrosite.
Tugtopite.
Okay. The orange one, it looks like a sphalerite too from Spain.
Very good. Sphalerite it is.
Yes.
Wow.
The purple one, it has some hints of blue. Pass. The next blue tourmaline.
Nope. Apatite.
Apatite, yes. And the colorless taupe, I don't know. Fluorite?
Diaspore.
Okay, what's the purple and the yellow?
Apatite is the purple. It's a 7-carat stone from Namibia. And the yellow is also a sphalerite.
Wow, beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you. Half.
2 out of 7. Does that give her like a free juice or something instead of a dinner?
Yeah, that's not bad. 2 out of 7.
Okay, all right. And just for the record, I would have gone rhodochrosite on the bottom left as well.
Tugtopite, yeah, I know. That's kind of an unusual one.
Yeah, I think I just get salt and pepper. Okay, so Raquel is she's from Harvard, obviously. She's the curatrix there. And you had a little bit of history, and I say a little bit ironically, as a consultant, or as we like to say, the chief cheap consultant for Harvard. Tell us about that time and how you got involved in that.
So growing up and interested in minerals, I was a member of the Boston Mineral Club. The Boston Mineral Club used to meet, I think they still do, at Harvard every month. And from going to those meetings, Carl Francis, who was at Harvard at the time, had got to know me and knew that I had just finished my GIA studies and asked me if I would be interested in working with the Harvard collection. So basically, I became an associate of the museum, basically taking care of the gem collection. In all the years that Harvard existed as a museum and as a university, there never was a gemologist on staff. Gemology is a fairly new science. And what happened was the museum just accepted whatever name was given to a stone when it was donated. And oftentimes the name was correct. Many times it was not. So what I did was I went through each and every stone in the collection and either confirmed or denied the name that was given with it when it came into the museum. And so and it was also logged in as a because there never was an inventory of all the stones that were there either. So it was a long involved process. I did it over the course of, well, I guess I was at Harvard for about 20 years, and it wasn't a full-time position. It was pretty much part-time and unpaid per my request, because I didn't want them to say, you have to be here at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Although if they needed me there at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, I was there. But I didn't want them to have to be there at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday.
You didn't want to be beholden to anybody.
Exactly. So but that certainly opened the door to a lot of other opportunities in the business, working with other museums, including the Smithsonian. And it was a great time.
Now, 20 years working with the Harvard Gem Collection and it not being inventoried prior to you being there, how large was the collection? And by the time you stopped kind of working with them, what was that inventory number?
Oh, so I stopped there in 2005. So that was 20 years ago. You're stretching my memory banks.
God. 2005 doesn't seem that long ago, right?
Until you realize that
it was 20 years ago. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Right,
yeah, exactly. That's a good question. I don't know exactly how many entries there were in that logbook. I think Raquel probably still has the logbook kicking around somewhere, although it's all digitized now.
But going in there, it must have been quite a large collection that must have been like, you walking into a toy store.
Oh, absolutely. Having recently finished at GIA and getting my GG there, basically this was great work for me to expand my horizons past the work that I did with GIA. To see a whole wide variety of stones and do a lot more studying on them than I had known before.
Now, did you work with GIA or were you just going through their program?
No, just the study programs.
Okay, and this is back when they were located up in Santa Monica, right?
Santa Monica, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now my understanding is that in at least one situation, you ended up recutting one of the tourmalines that they had on exhibit. Let me pull up a photograph of this. Tell us about this situation.
So I actually recut a number of stones at Harvard for one reason or another. This particular tourmaline, the stone that is on the left that looks black is actually an intensely dark blue. And what I did was I cut that stone in half, and the half was recut and then heat treated to turn into the blue stone that's on the right. And then I refaceted the one that I cut to match the faceting that was there already, to kind of give a before and after of what can be done, or what is done typically in the trade with treatments of stones.
And I absolutely love this example because, there, I guess, could be some controversy about whether or not a consultant or someone working for a museum should really go ahead and recut a stone there. But in this case, I think museums are about education. And for me, what an incredible way to educate people. Instead of having one big stone, you basically kind of shrunk the stone a little bit, but then also showed what it could look like when it's heat treated and cut in a different way. And it's hard to believe that these are literally the same stone or from
Yeah.
the same stone.
Yeah, definitely. I think the stone on the left is a little over 100 carats, and I believe the blue one was around 75 carats, give or take. So
Fantastic.
they're not little stones.
No, and it's great. It's great. Oof, oof. Okay, so let's go to Smithsonian. You have done a bunch of things with the Smithsonian there, staying on the whole museum theme. Tell us about how you got started with that. That came from your time at Harvard?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean that opened the door to the Smithsonian as well. Um, I knew the curators down there pretty well at the time. It was Paul Desautel's and the whole gang there. Russ Feather is the one that I work with most often there now, and I mean we have a great relationship. He often calls me on a question that he might have about a particular type of stone, and I've been working with them for a long period of time now.
I love it. And you're really kind of focused on education. I know that you were very involved in putting this together for the Smithsonian, and this is a kind of a graphic there that shows the steps of cutting a stone.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. The Smithsonian kind of remodeled their gallery in the mid '90s, and before it opened, they sent a photographer up to my office to kind of photograph the whole series of events from rough to finished, and that's what's hanging in the museum now. And I'll tell you a funny story about that too. So my fingers are actually hanging in the Smithsonian, which is kind of a cool thing. So the stones that I cut from that particular piece of rough, the largest stone was 18 carats, and I think you have a picture of that. So that I just donated to the Smithsonian just a couple of years ago, um, to go along with the plaque. And the funny thing is, Russ and I have been very, very good friends for a lot of years. And every year in Tucson, he would come over to my booth in at GJX, not once a show, but once a day. And he'd say, "John, what are you going to donate to the Smithsonian this year?" And my answer was the same the whole time. I says, "Russ, you're going to get the same thing that you get every year. You get my time for free, and that's all you get." So um, about that particular 18 karat stone, as a member of AGTA, we were going down to, there were a number of AGTA board members that were going down to the FBI actually for a tour there. And the next day we were scheduled to go to the Smithsonian. And Russ had called me, I don't know, a week or two before the trip on another matter. And he said, "By the way," he said, "why are you guys going to the FBI?" And I said, "Well, something about too many donations to the Smithsonian." So I said, "Speaking of which," I said, "do you remember that plaque that used to have my fingers on it?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Is that still hanging?" He said, "Oh, geez, I don't think so." I said, "Well, that's too bad, because if it was hanging, I would have happily donated the 18 karat aqua that was, that plaque was about." He went, "Let me call you back." 30 minutes later, he called me back. It's hanging. I says, "Oh, all right, you got me." I says, "Get the paperwork ready. I'll bring it with me."
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, you also have another story about donating to the Smithsonian that involves Mike indirectly. Tell the
So,
audience that story.
yeah, without giving any names, what have you. So, again, Russ came to the booth. "John, what are you going to donate to the Smithsonian this year?" Same story. And there happened to be somebody at the booth that particular time when Russ was there, and off he went, giggling and laughing, and I was giggling and laughing. And the person said, I can't believe you won't donate anything to the Smithsonian. What's the least expensive stone that you have at the case? And it was a cab for, I don't know, $20 or $30. So they reached into their pocket, they gave me the $20 or $30, and they said, I'm going to go donate this to the Smithsonian. And I said, well, okay, just make sure they know it's not from John Bradshaw. Oh, I will. So the next day I was over at AGTA and Russ said, did you see the donations? Did you see your donation? I says, I didn't donate anything. He says, yeah, I know, go look. And I think you have a picture. Gift of not John Bradshaw. Do you have any idea how many people said, I didn't know your first name was not?
It's Mr. Not to you.
Mr. Not.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
It just goes to show that even the Smithsonian has a sense of humor.
That's really the fun thing. We think of museums as these very kind of serious institutions, which they tend to be, but the characters who are at the museum, are just as fun and not irrelevant, but irreverent as you can imagine. I mean, we've got two great curatrix from famous museums right here on the show, and we're always
Exactly.
cutting each other up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, this past Tucson, Russ was not able to come to the show for personal reasons. But true to form, halfway through the show, he called me on the phone. So, John, what are you going to donate to the Smithsonian this year?
I love it. I love it. Now, I'm going to jump back to Harvard because we've got a story about a Willemite there that kind of goes back to show how serious and how much great work is actually done at the museums. This is one that I believe you had written a bunch of notes and in your book, and now it's been digitized. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this, and maybe you've got some story behind it that you can share with us.
Yeah, so this is a huge Willemite from Franklin, New Jersey, that I ended up recutting. The original stone really was more of a, I mean, it's not a great picture, but it's a great stone. The original piece, I really wouldn't call it a gem. I would have called it a polished preform. It was windowed, it was poorly cut, it was dinged, it was damaged, it was scratched. And so recutting it into its current form still maintained an incredible size and for a very rare stone. And it's a beautiful piece now.
So this was one where the original piece wasn't terribly remarkable, but by recutting it, you brought a brilliance and spotlight to it that could allow people to appreciate it even more.
Yep, definitely.
And Raquel, I can't see the writing in that, but can you give us some details of the notes that have been written on that?
Yeah, so this is a screenshot of our database, how we internally see. And what you see in there are the notes from John Bradshaw. He recut in 1992 to improve their appearance and is now considered the world's largest Willemite at 36.88 carats. And then it keeps going with notes. So that was on your catalog. And then we transcribe all that information into the database so we can still record all this info.
Yeah, the thing is too is as long as I've been doing this, I have a record, an electronic record as well, of every stone that I cut from scratch, not repairs, but just cut from scratch. So I could probably go back into what you said that was 92, Raquel?
Yes, 92.
Yeah, I could probably go back into that year, into the stones that I cut in 92 to find out what the original weight was. It was significantly bigger, I believe, but I remember that it was windowed and damaged and ugly.
Fantastic. Now, John, you still travel quite a bit. I've got a picture of you here, I believe, in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And
the
so,
typical buy. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, go.
That's the typical buying office that I use in Sri Lanka. I've been doing this for many years now. I go at least once a year, sometimes twice, but almost always once a year. It's a beautiful office that overlooks the Indian Ocean. The lighting is tremendous. And typically, what will happen is a number of the local dealers will sign up to come see me. I think last year there were 68 dealers signed up to come see me in the course of 2.5 days. Some of them bring just a handful of stones, some of them bring 100, and you got to look at them all. So it always is a very busy, intense days, long days that you have to kind of. And the thing that I realized too, after several years, unless I bring color samples with me, the light at 7 degrees off the equator is significantly different than it is at 40 degrees off the equator. So unless I bring color samples with me, really don't know what it's going to look like back here.
Interesting. What can you say about the quality of rough that's out there? Is more new stuff coming out, or is it getting harder and harder to find the kind of material that you're most interested in, which is kind of the rare gemstones?
Yeah, the availability of rarities is, used to be able to the major shows, Tucson, Denver, the shows of that size, used to be able to pick up even Munich for that matter too, especially when the wall came down back in the day.
Mhm.
Flood of rough that was coming in from the Eastern Bloc countries that was available for sale was incredible. I mean, you couldn't possibly have enough money to buy everything, and now, you got money in your pocket and there's nothing there. That ship has sailed. The best availability of some of the rarities is from material that you've already purchased years gone by, or from picking up old collections or old inventories, which we've done, several times over the years.
Interesting. So, but I mean, how many collections are there of rough material that isn't good enough to be considered a collectible mineral specimen, but it's perfect for cutting, and it's just sitting in someone's back room? Maybe their children have now inherited it and they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the collections and inventories, they do pop up from time to time. We had, in fact, Coast to Coast was involved in picking up a huge collection and in a private collection and inventory of a dealer that was on the West Coast, probably 10, 12, 15 years ago or so, give or take.
Mm.
And it involved material that hadn't been on the market or seen for years. So we did obviously very, very well with that. Most of the material was recut. Some of it was sold as is.
And where are you finding a lot of these kind of hidden collections popping up? Is it mainly US, or is it in Asia, maybe in Europe?
Um, all of the above, mostly in the U.S. Dealers that have been around for a number of years and decide that they're not going. Well, I should talk. I probably have more rough than I'll ever cut in my entire lifetime. Um, but I mean that happens, um, as dealers might be getting older and thinking of retiring and cutting back and what have you, and they realize that they probably have more material than they'll ever be able to sell or deal with, then it becomes available for sale. And by having, made contacts over the years, we usually find out about them.
Now, is there a large gem cutting community out there, or is it relatively small and you're all kind of sharing information?
Definitely sharing information. There's not a lot of people that do it for a living in the U.S. I don't know exactly how many there are, but we pretty much all know each other too. There is a very larger or a larger core of hobbyists that are involved in the hobby now compared to what it was when I started. Um, and I think the advent of the internet and faceting diagrams and what have you that are available online are, have contributed to that. As far as cutting material, there's a lot of synthetics, there's a lot of quartzes and topazes, and some of the easily obtainable material is still available. So the hobbyists have quite a bit of material to do. People who do it for a living, there's not a lot of fine material that's available anymore.
Now, has that number gone down over the years? Were there, in the past, was it possible that there were a lot more people that were doing it as their primary source of income?
I don't know as if the numbers have changed much. I would assume that it's probably pretty close to what it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The availability of material certainly has gone down. I had that little rough buying disease for 40 plus years, and thank God I did, because I have plenty of things to cut, even if I don't ever buy another parcel of rough. That said, if a parcel of rough came up next week that looked pretty good, I'd buy it.
Now, do you often surprise yourself by going through your own inventory and finding things that you forgot you had and said, "Oh, I'm going to start cutting this now"?
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. I got a couple stones here, some photos of which you sent me. I'd like you to tell us the story behind some of these.
So that is an 86 carat sphalerite from Mongolia.
Is
It was normally I do not cut for other people. I only cut my own material. But
okay.
every now and again, a piece comes down the line that you just can't say no to. And this was one of them. Tremendous piece, unbelievably clean. And it was cut probably 15 years or so ago. But great piece.
Wow.
86 carat is huge for sphalerite and clean.
And that's
And
in a
it's,
private collection somewhere?
yes. Yeah. I cut it for a dealer, and I'm sure that the dealer has sold it since. But unusually clean, unusually large for a sphalerite.
Superb. All right. Here we're going to go into a little bit of a rough and cut here. Here we got a rough piece of wolfenite. Where's this from?
Namibia.
Namibia. Okay.
You can just see the A on the back.
Well, I knew it was a country that ended in an A, but it could have been a lot of places.
Yeah, could have been Australia, Austria.
Right.
So wolfenite is always a mineral or a gem, as you know, that is available in very thin sections. And thin sections usually don't lead to very large stones. This particular locality in Namibia produced material that was large enough and thick enough to cut some pretty large pieces. And that 30 gram piece ended up cutting almost a 40 carat stone and a few other smaller ones, which I think is, you have a picture of that too, I think. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, little fuzzy, but the stone on the right is just a tad shy of 40 carats. 40 carat wolfenite is huge. The orange one in the middle is 20-ish, and the ones on the left are 4, 5, 7 carats, which is still huge for wolfenite.
Those are amazing. Fantastic. Okay, now let's go to this one. Everybody loves tourmaline.
Yeah. So this is from Maine, and this kind of goes along the line of things can come from anywhere. We were at the show in Tucson at GJX, and a customer of mine came by and had some of her dad's rough that he had since passed away, and she was looking to sell them. And she had this piece from Newry, and I said, "Yeah, I'll take that, no problem." It was a great piece. You can see my fingers for size scale, and that ended up cutting out of the center. It cut a number of stones, but the largest, cleanest one was a little over 10 carat stone, which I think you have a picture of too.
right there.
There it is. Yeah.
That is absolutely fantastic, and I love it. It's from a classic American location.
Yep.
And when we were looking at this, you said the purple was a apatite, correct?
It was. Yep. Yep. From Namibia. Again, purple apatite is.
This is the same one. Am I correct here?
That's the same. That's the same one. That's a little over 7 carats. I don't remember the exact weight, but a little over 7 carats, which is huge for purple apatite, from Namibia. And that was cut from a parcel of purple apatite rough that a friend of mine in Namibia actually came across and knew that I liked rare stones and got in touch with me. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. In fact, I think there's a picture of the bucket of rough that this came from. Here it is. Yeah. So
Now, you got that whole lot of rough?
I did. Yeah. It's all gone now.
Incredible. I love that. And it looks like this is that you hard at work?
Yeah. So when you guys asked me to to do the Mineral Talks live, you said, well, would love a picture of you cutting. And I realized that there have been so few pictures of me cutting. This is back when I had hair.
Well, that's what's on your head. I couldn't figure that out. I thought it was just some blur in the photo.
And actually, the stone that I'm cutting is some of the aqua from that piece that the Smithsonian poster is about. So that's a whole suite of aquamarine, all untreated from different localities. The one on the left is from Brazil. The one in the middle is Mozambique, and the one on the right is from Zambia.
God, absolutely fantastic. John, let me ask you, where did you learn your technique? I mean, did you have a mentor that taught you how to cut? Was it from books? It certainly wasn't from anything online.
Yeah.
Your cuts are fantastic. They're beautiful. Where did you learn your craft?
Well, a lot of trial and error.
Okay.
A lot of trial and error. In the beginning, you don't really know what's right and what's wrong. So you try something, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's a constant learning curve. And even today, I mean, I'm still learning today. And, being a part of Coast to Coast with Brad and with Mike, we share a lot of information between us as well. I'll mention a stone, cerussite. So cerussite is a very soft stone, very delicate, very heat sensitive. And I was cutting a cerussite just before Tucson one year, and it developed a little bit of a fracture, a little bit of a crack. And I went, oh, well, I'm not going to recut this before the show. I'll just let it be and get back to it another time. I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months later, whatever it was, I picked the stone up again, and the crack was gone. And I looked close, and it was still there, but it kind of looked like a twinning plane as opposed to a crack. And I said, well, that's strange. The next time that we get together with Mike and Brad, I happen to mention it. And Brad says, well, that happened to me too. And Mike says, well, that's happened to me too. So it's really only the people that can cut a cerussite that you kind of learn these kind of little subtle things. I did jinx Mike one time. A lot of these softer stones that are heat sensitive, you have to cold up, not with wax. And then the epoxy has to be soaked off, and you usually do that with a solvent. Well, for the most part, soaking off stone in a solvent is never an issue, except with cuprite. With cuprite, you put it in, and it does kind of break down the glue, but it doesn't break it down all the way. So you end up having to rub the remaining glue off of the stone. And I was telling Mike, I think this particular one time, he says, yeah, it's never happened to me. And then the next time he cut a cuprite, he called me up. He said, you jinxed me. It just happened to me.
You put that possibility in my world.
Yeah. It's kind of like mentioning, Home Depot in front of your phone, and the next day you have 10 ads for Home Depot. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like saying, "Oh, my car never breaks down," and then the next day you need a new transmission.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, Mike, I'm going to pull this photo up again. This is the Smithsonian panel.
Yeah.
And I think what this panel does very well, and we may not be able to see the details because we're not zoomed in here. Or actually, let me switch over to here, and I can zoom in a little bit more. This is kind of cool because this shows the different steps of cutting. So for the viewers who are not familiar with the cutting process, can you talk about from preform to final polish and all the things in between?
Well, I don't want to put them to sleep, but
okay, we'll do it briefly. And in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and launch the poll. So, John, if you see a little window pop up, you could just close that because you're not supposed to read those questions anyway.
I'm not going to answer my own questions. Okay.
Right.
So, every different type of stone has its own set of optical and physical properties, and those optical and physical properties pretty much tell you what you can and what you can't do with a particular stone. But the basic process is taking it from the rough. You ideally, in most cases, want to remove any inclusions or any fractures that exist in the rough to be able to produce as clean a stone as you can. And then you have to figure out the orientation, where the table is going to be, where the rest of the stone is going to fall, and that is determined by, again, the optical and physical properties of the particular stone.
And I'm sorry, John, the table for the viewers who are not familiar is the main viewing window that's at the top of the stone.
It's the largest facet on the top of the stone, correct. Typically, the stone is preformed or shaped just by hand, as you can see, I think, in one of those photos. Yeah, there you go. And then it is attached to a brass dopstick inserted into the cutting machine that you have available to go around a 360-degree circle and at a particular angle to the lap. And then, of course, polishing is a thing that is very difficult to do in many cases, and not so much in the 25 or 30 species that you'd normally see in the jewelry industry, but a lot of the rare stones require some different techniques for polishing. I probably have, I never really counted them, but if I had to guess, probably 30, 35, maybe 40 different polishing lap and polishing agent combinations that I use over, depending on what stone I'm cutting.
And that by itself is fascinating. When you told me that the other day, that there are so many different polishes, I knew that there'd be more than one, but not 30 to 40. What are the differences? It's not just grit. What are the other qualities that would separate the different polishing compounds?
Depending on what particular stone you're working with, some polishing agents, polishing compounds, polishing laps work better than others. Some really can only be polished on something very soft, like a wax lap. Others can go on a composite lap. Some can go on a lead tin lap. Some can go. There are some new laps that are available in the market now that are fairly new over the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, and those are tremendous for a variety of stones.
I remember when I was in Burma, one of the things I saw was they were doing polishing on rotating bamboo, of all things.
Yeah, a lot of the international cutters, chrome oxide is a huge part of the polishing process, and chrome oxide is a part of my world too, but not entirely. I do a lot with diamond, some with chrome oxide, some with Lindier, which is aluminum oxide, and aluminum oxide comes in a variety of grit sizes for polishing, and depending on what you're working with, sometimes you do more than one.
Gotcha. Now, John, I had asked you the other day, what is the one stone that you dislike cutting the most, or the one stone that you find is the most problematic? And you told me the stone. You didn't tell me the story behind it, but you did send photos. So I'm going to pull up this photo and I'm going to have you tell us why calcite is your bane.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes, Brian, I get asked what my favorite stone is, and my answer is I really don't have a favorite stone because I love working with the whole variety of stones. Well, except calcite. Calcite, calcite. I cut one calcite a year just to remind myself how much I don't like to cut calcite.
And I love that about you, John, that you don't say, "Oh, I hate this and I'll never cut it again." You still force yourself to cut
I
it
do.
once a year just to remind you how horrible it is.
I am a glutton for punishment. Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment, basically. So if you pull that pick up again, as you're cutting a calcite, sometimes you can see that little ding that's on the facet junction, and calcite is extreme. It has cleavages are just brutal on calcite. And I just hate cutting Mike loves calcite. I hate calcite. And I think Brad is in the same category as me. He hates calcite too. Anyway, so you're cutting the calcite and you get a little ding and you go and you fix that. And then, you try it again and then all of a sudden, on the next picture you can see that I think I lost a corner. Yeah, there you go. Lost a corner this time. So after a few of these, what you do is you dop a number of calcites and get them ready for cutting. And you make sure they're all watching, and you show the others what could happen if things don't go well. And usually that works out. The next stone that you cut, it works.
This is you if you don't handle yourself right. Smash, smash, smash.
And you have to make sure that they're watching. So, you can't just smash one independently.
I absolutely love that. Oh my God. Hey, John, we're coming towards the end of our show here.
Okay.
I've got a thing that I'm going to do with you right now, which is what we call our quick fire five. So I've got 5 questions I'm going to ask you. You've not heard any of these questions. And with each question, I'm going to give you 2 options to choose from. And you tell us which option you resonate with the strongest. All of your answers are correct. And then we're going to see how well the viewers got in terms of getting the answers that you're going to tell us.
Okay. You didn't tell me there's going to be a test.
I think I kind of muddled the description a little bit.
I didn't know there'd be a test at the end.
Yeah, there's always a test. There's always a test. Come on, you know it. All right. Question number 1. Are you ready?
Sure.
Favorite gem sourcing place, Maine or Sri Lanka?
Oh, God.
See, they're not easy.
No, they're not. Why do I have to? It's like picking my favorite kid.
No, it's like cutting calcite.
I got to say Maine.
Maine, right on. Well, it's local also. Favorite cut. Question number 2. Favorite cut, brilliant or fancy?
Brilliant or fancy? As in a round brilliant? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Fancy.
Fancy. Question number 3. We already know the answer, but this was kind of to the audience. Least favorite stone to cut, calcite or fluorite? You don't even have to answer. I know what your answer is.
There you go. Calcite. Fluorite's a piece of cake.
Okay. Favorite holiday spot? Cabin by the mountain or cottage by the sea?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. That's tough because it could be either. You could be up near Arenal or down near the coast. But which coast? Are you onto the Pacific coast or the Caribbean coast or the Atlantic coast?
No, the Northwest coast. And I've been doing the Costa Rica trip now, again, at least once a year for the past 10, 12 years or so. It is one of the most fantastic places to go to recharge the batteries, especially after Tucson.
Oh, totally, totally. I love it. I'm going with your cottage by the sea here.
Okay.
Yeah, I often tell people, and I've been to Costa Rica many times. I have a really good friend who's one of my groomsmen from Costa Rica, so I've been down there many times to visit him. Costa Rica is one of those Spanish-speaking countries where if you don't speak a lick of Spanish, you can still get by fine. I love the
Absolutely.
country.
And you don't need a colonia in your pocket. You can use a U.S. dollar bill any way you have to.
Pura vida, pura vida. Favorite hobby, cutting gemstones or sourcing gemstones? That's actually, I like this question a lot.
That's another. That's another.
I know. It's not easy.
I'm gonna go. Oh God, I'll go with cutting gemstones.
Wow. I was certain you were going to go with sourcing.
See that? I hate to be pigeonholed.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. Okay. So, who's going to do their answers? Are we with Raquel or Eloise today?
Hello.
Hello. Soon to be birthday girl.
All right, let's go then.
Eloise is probably going, oh my God, he's not doing this birthday thing, is he? All right, Elo. Question number 1. Favorite gem sourcing place, Maine or Sri Lanka, after a little bit of hair pulling, and I mean that in the singular sense.
Just the one.
John came up with Maine. What did our viewers say?
No, they went for Sri Lanka.
They went for the exotic. All right.
I could have gone that way. I could have gone that way too.
Yeah, no, I got it. Favorite cut, brilliant or fancy? With little hesitation, John went with fancy after his clarifying question. What did our viewers say?
Yeah, fancy. We have to do something different than just boring rounds. Brilliant cut, right?
Exactly.
Sorry.
So, Eloise, how do you feel about that, really? Okay, so this was kind of tough because they would have had to have known John to get this correct or just 50-50 lucky. Least favorite stone to cut, calcite or fluorite? Obviously, calcite. What did our viewers say?
We launched the poll before you talked about the difficulties with calcite, and still 82% went for calcite.
Nice.
There you go.
I like that. They know John. Favorite holiday spot, cabin by the mountain, cottage by the sea? John, let me ask you a follow-up question with Costa Rica. When you're down there, that's just family time, family trip, right?
Well, yes. We've been there a number of times with our family. We have very good close friends that actually own a house down there, and they're down there for a good part of the wintertime. And so we go down and visit them. And over the years, a lot of their friends down there have become our friends. So it's kind of like going home.
I love it. Okay, so John went with cottage by the sea in Costa Rica with all the ticos and ticas. What did our viewers say, Eloise?
Well, cabin by the mountain. So
there you go. Hey, Brian, just as a note, I just saw one of the chats pop up from my wife that said the wife got 2 wrong.
All right. Well, hey, the wife is trending with the rest of the audience.
And we're not done yet, so
Right. Okay, so this is the tiebreaker. Let's just see how your wife ranks with the rest of the viewers. Favorite hobby, cutting gemstones or sourcing? I would have gone with sourcing. John went with cutting. What did the majority of our viewers say, Eloise?
cutting gemstones. Yeah.
Cutting gemstones. Hey.
I mean, that was a tough one, Brian. The reason I went with cutting is because sourcing gemstones has become so difficult it's almost not pleasurable anymore.
Right, yeah, but for me, it's like sourcing gemstones means you got to travel, and that's why you were going to go with that. Cutting gemstones, you're at home, which it's similar to what I do, where for me to film things, I have to travel, but for me to edit things, I do it at home. And so I love being home. I love being with my family, but I also love traveling. And so I understand how that would have been a tough question, because if I were asked the same question, do I like to, travel and film, or do I like to stay home and edit?
I know. Well,
I love them both and I hate them both.
Very, very, very similar to the way that I don't have a favorite gemstone, because they're all, unique and difficult, different to work with. Same thing. If I had to be here cutting 365 days a year, I probably wouldn't like it as much as I do now.
Yeah.
And same thing, if I had to travel 365 days a year, I probably wouldn't like that part as much as I do. But because the year is broken up into segments, some cutting, some travel, it really is a lot of fun.
I couldn't agree more. That's like total parallel to my life. I mean, if I did nothing but sat here and edit, I would close the company. I don't like it that much, but I like it enough that because I get to do all kinds of creative content and get to craft the stories the way that I want. But I also love traveling. But I often say the toughest part of my job is that I'm away from my family so much. So it's the right blend of the two that makes the job or the career the enjoyable thing that it is. So you and I, we're like this, John. We're like that.
Well, the travel part can be difficult. In fact, many times, the things kind of are backed up to one another. Last October, my wife and I flew to London, spent a day in London, then went to Munich. We were in Munich for 4 days. We went back to London for the weekend, and then we went home. We flew home on Sunday, but then I flew back to London on Thursday for the conference. So,
right.
I mean, my body didn't know what time zone it was in.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think one of my saving graces is, I spent a lot of time in Europe. And so where I live is usually exactly 12 hours different from being in Europe. And so that at least helps me a little bit. But if I were just, doing the same kind of thing, time hopping and time zone skipping, your body kind of just starts saying, what the hell's happening?
Okay, so Brian, I know you're gonna pass me for the Q&A question, but guess what?
This is Raquel's subtle, not so subtle way of saying, Brian, shut up, you're talking too much.
No.
My turn. Raquel, Q&A. Do we have any questions from the audience?
The thing is that the first question is actually to you, Brian. It comes from Greg, yes. Can anyone claim to rival Brian's world-class collection of colorful Hawaiian shirts? What do you think?
Can anyone? I didn't hear the first part of it. Can anyone what?
Claim to rival,
to have a bigger collection.
Yes, of your world-class collection of shirts.
No. In the mineral world, not at all. I mean, it was the show that we did with Wayne and Donna Light from Cristale. That was our 50th show, and it marked the first year of us doing Mineral Talks Live. And for that 50th show, for all of those 50 shows, I wore a different shirt every episode. And back then we were doing it weekly, if people remember that. It was in the height of the pandemic, and every Wednesday we did a show. So for the first year, we did 50 shows, and every show I wore a different shirt. Now I'm just recycling those shirts, but obviously every year I get maybe 3 or 4 new shirts. So I'm probably 60 or so shirts. And even I think that's a little bit absurd.
Brian,
one day we do a fundraising, Brian. And
what?
We do a fundraising event. We sell your shirts and we get money for Mineral Talks Live so we can travel together. You didn't like that face.
No. Cute idea, Raquel. Cute idea. I think one day we sell pieces from Harvard, get more money, travel bigger, larger.
Wow,
oh my God, look at his face. It's hilarious.
Anyhow, sorry, audience. Let me go back to John. Very enjoyable conversation, as you can tell by all the comments also on the chat. And we have, let me start with Ralph Conti. He asked if you ever cut a peristerite.
Peristerite?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Not that immediately comes to mind. Not that I know of. No.
Okay. He said he has a 1,1200 carat one.
That's big. Yeah, that's big.
So I guess if he wants to, he can always reach out to you if he's interested or you are interested, right? And then the other thing is from Patrick. Do you know any cut gems from Ireland? He asked
From Ireland?
Yes.
Just the Blarney Stone, really.
Say that again?
The Blarney Stone.
No, familiar.
Yeah, it's it's actually not a stone that is facettable, but the Blarney Stone is kind of one of the things that they say is from Ireland. But yeah,
It's
I don't
part
know.
of the folklore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any normal gemstones or even rare stones that would come from Ireland. And yeah, I don't think I've ever cut one from Ireland.
We need to discover a Guinness site.
Yeah, yeah. And have to go on site to mine it.
Oh yeah, or at least look for it.
Yeah.
It's in every pub in Ireland. It's
Exactly.
somewhere, I'm sure.
And then I have also another question. You were showing up some tourmalines and how you cut them. And I remember you mentioned last time that you can tell even some tourmalines will not cut the same depending where they come from.
Not necessarily where they come from, but a lot of times the C-axis of a tourmaline sometimes is not the same color that it is down the AB axis. So sometimes the color is kind of an ugly color compared to a nice green color across the AB, and sometimes the C-axis is black. And if the C-axis is black or an ugly color, then you have to handle that a little bit differently when you're cutting it. If it has a dark C-axis or an ugly C-axis, then you have to steepen the end so that you don't drag that color into the stone. Whereas a pink tourmaline, typically the better color is down the C-axis, not across the AB.
Yeah. But you mentioned something about Afghanistan tourmalines or Brazil tourmalines.
Oh, yeah. So Afghanistan tourmaline. I think we were talking about the bicolor tourmalines from Afghanistan, and bicolor tourmalines in general, whether they're from Afghanistan or anywhere else, typically have a fair amount of strain. And oftentimes, you never finish 100% of the bicolor tourmalines that you start. If you can finish 80% of them, I think you're doing pretty well. That strain typically is at the color junction. And a lot of times, if you go to preform it, as soon as that stone hits the wheel, it just explodes and breaks violently. Pieces are all over the place.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's what they say. C-axis. I think that's from the main chat. Actually, no, we have one more question. Have you cut a berry from Quaderville, Ontario?
What from Ontario?
A barrel, I guess.
A barrel?
Mm-hmm.
Not a barrel. I mean, a lot of things come from Ontario. Brad Wilson, our Canadian guy, he has done. He is the expert on Canadian minerals and Canadian gems, and what has been done. He would be the person to ask that. I mean, I know that beryl has come from a number of different localities in Canada. Not sure about Ontario.
Okay. And then, have you noticed that Ethiopian opals loses color temporarily when wet?
Ethiopian, yeah.
Opals.
So unlike Australian opal, which has to be stored in water to not craze and crack and lose its color, the Ethiopian opal, when it is wet, completely loses its color until it dries out. But then the color will come back.
Ah, that's fascinating. So you cut, so when you cut it,
Yeah. Yeah, when you cut it, the color goes away.
so how do you know?
You have to kind of remember where the color was when you started.
Because you want to play, right? We highlighting the best colors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't completely disappear, but it is diminished significantly. And then after you're done and the stone dries out again, then the color returns.
Okay, thank you. One more question from the chat. Any of your patterns published? Are you patent, I guess? Did you patent any of your patents?
Oh, patented? No. For the most part, there are a lot of named cuts, and for the most part, I really don't see the point of naming a cut or patenting a cut, because if you change one angle, it's a different cut. And you'd likely change a different angle. You'd likely change at least one angle if you're cutting it in on a different material. So yeah, no, I think that's something that is, kind of cool to do, but definitely not necessary. And I don't think I've ever named any of my cuts.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brian, I think that's all from us. So, oh, Elo, please. Yeah, sorry.
Hello has a hand. I see her hand raised.
It's not really a question. It's more of a comment. We know John and all the guys from coast to coast, because it's the people that you rush to see when the GGX first opened, and we were discussing about that just earlier when before we were opening the show. It's crazy. So you guys do rare gemstones, and you're known worldwide for that. So like every collector and reseller and curators, we go there. First time it's going to be you, usually I try to go and see you on the first day of the show, and this year I didn't manage to go on the first day. I only went on the third, fourth day, and your booth was like empty. It's like, where are the gemstones gone? So this is really insane, So what, if you had a question, was what did I miss arriving on the fourth day of the GJX? What were the hits this year?
I mean, as always, Bonita White is a huge part of our show in Tucson, and that is usually the one single gemstone that sells out very quickly. This year we had more than we've had in the past, and so we did have some availability, more than we've had in previous years. But it's like Christmas for a gem dealer, basically. At GGX on opening day. So we used to video it of the people running to the booth, and we do have several videos of the people running to the booth. And then the last couple of years, we stopped videoing it because we get there at 7:30 on opening day, and about 7:45, some of the dealers that are in there start sniffing around the booth to do a little bit of advanced buying, and we're still setting up. I said, listen, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to give any pricing, nothing. I said, 9:00. I said, we'll do a little bit of business at 9:00. So now at 9:00, we have a handful of dealers that are in the show that do their buying at 9:00, and then we frantically try to get ready for the 10:00 opening again. So we basically now have kind of like two rushes.
It's pretty amazing. Thank you.
I love it. It's like the running of the bulls.
So the last I think 2 or 3 years, we have sold 70% of the inventory that we bring to the show.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and this year you had some cool stuff as well that we didn't see the last years. I saw the telepresent scapolite, for example. You had some fun stuff as well. So
that's material that's not off the shelf. It was mined in Afghanistan a number of years ago. It was rough that I picked up in the past year or so from an old inventory, and I cut a few pieces. It's tremendous material. It's just colorless. but under shortwave, it turns to a brilliant aquamarine blue and then fades back to colorless depending on how strong the light is. And I'll have a little bit more next year as well.
Cool. We got two for the teaching purposes at the school. So.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Don. That was amazing. Thanks for sharing everything with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and great to see all of you as well.
Fantastic. John, thanks again for coming on the show. For all you viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in next month, the first Wednesday of May, for the next exciting episode of Mineral Talks Live as we continue our march to episode 100. All right. Take care. Have a great month.